Oh, okay, but now what?
Pause or stop the recording and see if they're.
Oh. Okay, Rabbi is coming on. Come, here he is. That's a lovely photo of you. Rabbi's connecting to audio. Guys, this is happening. Very, very excited to have.
Wait, are we on? Are we on?
We are on. We are on.
I got to put on video. Hang on 1 second.
All right. Hey guys.
1 second.
Everyone on Facebook, I'm now on Zoom, so I can't see your comments, but keep commenting because we'll get to them a little later. But now Rabbi Shmuley Zoom is joining us. You guys all know.
You know what I asked you.
You know what I want to ask the Fab. I gave you a wonderful intro, by the way.
You gave me a wonderful intro?
I did. I could say it again.
Well, if it's praise for me, then I definitely want to hear it again.
You should want to hear it again. Okay. We've got the amazing, well, Rabbi Shmuteyach. Hey, there you go. That's a nice.
That's no one can ever pronounce my name properly, so.
But that's like a portmanteau of your first name and last name. That's like if you married yourself, you'd be Shmuteyach.
That's, I've thought of marrying myself often, given that I'm my own favorite person, right?
That's right. And then that could be the topic of your next book.
Just don't tell my wife, right?
And
I've got to get on. I've got to turn off. I've got to turn on the video.
Don't take your time while you're connecting. The first thing I wanted to, I was talking about was just, you know, the kosher. I love your kosher series. I just feel like they should keep going. But the two that I'm waiting for are kosher tattoos and kosher bacon. What do you think? Are those in the pipeline?
I'm a lot more. It's much more possible. People keep on asking me after writing Kosher Sex. You know, I've done a whole kosher. Sorry, I've got to lift this seat a little bit. I'm short. Let me turn it on video. Should I turn on video?
Yeah. Turn on video.
David, can you do what I asked?
I mean, it's a great photo.
Getting my kids to listen to me is like an impossibility. Here, go do it, please. Go fast. Okay, turn on video. Hold on. Am I on video now? I am. Yeah. Okay.
You're on. Let me raise my. I have such a high table. Okay, now we're at the same height. Woohoo!
We are.
Here we are. Ladies and gentlemen.
Wait a second. Am I in your? Okay. Thanks, Talia. So look, first of all, I'm sorry for being a little bit late, but I actually have quite a noble reason. You know, my father passed away in May. Rosh Chodesh Sivan, and I have to say Kaddish 3 times a day. Now, saying Kaddish during the coronavirus is a real challenge because it is. People don't go to shul, do go to shul.
Right, of course.
The minions change. So I heard there was an 8 o'clock minion, and I've already said Shacharis and Mincha, so I had to say the evening prayer, Ma'ariv, and I can't. These days I can't take a chance. If there's 10 men somewhere, I find them and I say Kaddish. So.
Understood. Totally.
I still remember this joke you told at it's closed now. Stand Up New York. It was so funny. You were speaking about Jewish day schools, and you said you called one of the schools to. Maybe it was Hebrew Academy of Nassau County. I can't remember. You said you had called one of the schools to enroll your child, and you saw the phone number, so you called it, and then you saw it wasn't the phone number; it was the tuition. Yes. That was really funny.
Ouch! Yes, that's. Remember that moment.
And very true.
It's a tough religion. Yeah, a lot of my observations come from having not grown up religious. I grew up traditional and then became religious later. For my parents are Baal Tshuva.
Why did you do that? Why did you ruin your life?
Yeah, and it's funny, I'm asked that almost every day by my FFB friends. And for those who don't know, from birth, meaning born religious, you know, I like to experience lots of things, and it just seemed like a nice idea at the time. No, I'm kidding. My parents became religious when I was in college. So all of a sudden I would come home from school and there'd be a beautiful sukkah. I'm like, oh, we do this now. There'd be mashloach manot. I'm like, wow, this is amazing. So I saw all these beautiful aspects of Judaism that I never did before, and I wanted to be part of it. And so then I started dating religious guys, and then yada, 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 married a very religious man.
So you were kind of hoodwinked by the religion. You saw all the, oh my God, it's Shabbos candles and fresh steaming hot challah,
Oh,
and the kiddushes after shul and the community. They didn't tell you, but they forgot to mention Yom Kippur. They forgot to mention
25
Tisha B'Av.
hours.
They forgot to mention traveling around the world and eating a can of tuna fish and a head of lettuce.
Traveling. I did
Well,
consider
not that any of us travel anymore, but back in ancient times when we still traveled, and we kosher Jews, I'm used to the can of tuna fish and the lettuce thing.
I'm not.
So they didn't tell you all that. They just told you about all the beautiful parts of Judaism.
And all the wonderful people.
I wrote Kosher Sex. They didn't tell you about the 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off.
I was just saying that. Okay, here we go. I fell into a rabbit hole of rereading. I wanted to just brush up on my Kosher Sex. I ended up spending like 2 hours. It is so good. I forgot how good it was, but I kept waiting for the mikvah. And it wasn't in the book. Because I feel like you do advocate for Shomer Negia, basically, to the extent possible for people. But then there's no mikvah. So I wonder, was that because you think the concept is too wackadoodle to introduce to the masses? Or is it not necessary?
Well, mikvah isn't Kosher Sex. It actually plays a very big role in Kosher Sex, because I think that the mikvah idea is an ingenious idea, but not for the reasons that we think it is. Most of the time, we Orthodox Jews love lauding the mikvah as a way of reinvigorating passion in an otherwise dormant marital sexual relationship, because familiarity breeds contempt. If a marriage is sex on tap, and if you can always have it, and et cetera, then they're convinced that sorry, see, that's the worst thing about having an Apple Watch. Even when you turn off all your phones, your watch still rings. Okay, so we love saying that the mikvah can reinvigorate end a sexual famine in marriage, which comes from too much routine, too much regularity, too much predictability. Because you suddenly can't do anything for 5 days of menstruation, 7 days thereafter until the wife goes to the mikvah.
So that's the rule. No, I'm kidding. Sorry.
But I look at it a little bit differently. And what I write in Kosher, and mikvah plays a very big role in the book. What I say is this: there are 3 rules to erotic attraction. Rule number 1 is unavailability. Rule number 2 is mystery. Rule number 3 is sinfulness. So take, for example, unavailability. All fast food sucks. No matter how good it is, it sucks. Like, I live to go to the kosher McDonald's in Israel, which I can't go to for a year now because Israel shut down. But then you finally get there and you eat McDonald's and you say, oh my God, I can't believe that this is what I was waiting. Because with fast food, there's no unavailability. It's instantly available. The expensive restaurants make you wait for it. That's rule number 1. Rule number 2 is mystery. Everything which is mysterious maintains its allure. Think of Leonardo DiCaprio. Think of Meryl Streep. Think of Barbara Streisand. All of these stars who have maintained their longevity in the public, they almost never do interviews. They're very unavailable, like Tom Cruise. People like once every 2-3 years they'll do an interview. The ones who do interviews every single day, their shelf life disappears because the public loves mystery. But the third is sinfulness. The Talmud says, "Maim genuvim yimtaku," that we love stolen waters, forbidden waters. Therefore, what the mikveh does is provide all 3. It makes a wife and a husband unavailable to each other. So sex is unavailable. We always love pursuing what we can't have. Number 2, it's very mysterious. The whole idea of modesty, mikveh, it's actually a very mysterious thing. It's one of the reasons that even non-religious men, I've always seen this, are kind of gravitate to Orthodox Jewish women, because there's a certain feminine mystique, there's a certain ladylike demeanor that is actually born of kind of laws of tznius, etc. But the third is sinfulness. when your wife becomes forbidden to you, she is actually more delectable to you. So the mikvah isn't only, oh, I can't have it, therefore, thank God, because sex was becoming so humdrum and so boring. It's also the sinful, forbidden, unavailable aspect. So I speak about it in Kosher Sex under that rubric.
I see.
That was a pretty long answer to
No,
a very
I
short.
like that. So it's sort of implicit in the book. So, I mean, any Jewish person reading the book can sort of sense mikvah in the waters, so to speak.
Well, that's another good point. Believe it or not, I rarely ever write only for Jewish audiences. If I'm writing about supporting Israel, I believe it's for Jews and non-Jews. I think Israel is a great light to all the nations. Democracy, women's rights, LGBT rights in the Middle East. If I'm writing about kosher sex, it's for Jews and non-Jews. I launched kosher sex on the Today Show, and we talked about mikvah on the Today Show. And I said, in my opinion, all women in America should kind of practice the 12 days of sexual separation in marriage and go to a mikveh, a body of living water. Listen, all people love going to natural springs. They all love going to, I don't know, hot springs or beautiful rivers or lakes where you do feel very refreshed. And the idea of the mikveh is where we human beings are almost 80% water. When we kind of reconnect with a living spring and something living inside us, it just brings about the sense of renewal. So yes, I absolutely believe it's for Jews and non-Jews alike. Or as I said in Kosher Sex, even for the uncircumcised, kosher sex is a cut above.
You know, it's funny, another concept that really kind of rang true for me, and it's funny you mentioned Leonardo DiCaprio, for example. Okay, now here's a guy who has
by the way, I often get mistaken for Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh my gosh, that's where I was going with this.
A lot of people think like I'm like his long lost twin. We're like basically identical.
Well, have you met him before? I mean, you've met a lot of celebrities.
You know, I have not met him, but when I look in the mirror, I kind of see him, you know? But go on.
I see Gal Gadot, so, you know.
Right. Yeah. No, I get you. I understand.
Right? But so here's an example of someone who's had so many premarital relationships, if you will. Because what I thought was interesting about your book, and I never thought about like the importance of marrying your first big grand relationship of your life, was so that you don't have a trail of, I guess, what we call baggage, but of what you were calling unmourned or unresolved relationships that are in a sense something you have to sit shiva for. You know, and then you enter into this new relationship where you're getting married and it's this holy thing that's sanctified, but you have this whole past of broken hearts, or that, like, how can that marriage be a real successful marriage as compared to somebody who is both starting their life together in their first big love relationship? Is there any hope for Leonardo, is what I'm asking.
By the way, this is really funny. On my Facebook feed, when I was saying that I'm identical to Leonardo DiCaprio, someone just said to me, "You must be joking. You look nothing like him." Okay, thank you very much. I actually do, and you're probably blind. Okay.
Come on, man.
What I say in Kosher Sex about previous lovers and previous sexual relationships, and studies show that the average guy has got like 20 sexual partners before he marries, and the average woman has 6 or 7. By the way, go and figure out those numbers. Who are the men having sex with? Nobody knows. Okay, but, or there's like 1 or 2 women out there who've kind of been doing overtime. I don't know. But the point is, the point is men have more sexual liaisons prior to marriage than women on average. And what I say in the book is, I don't call it baggage, to be honest.
No, you don't.
I try to be inspirational. I call it the ghosts of lovers past. I don't think that those images, I don't think that those liaisons completely fade. I think a vestige of them remains because it's such an intimate experience. You're literally sharing of yourself. You're inviting someone into your most private space. So what happens when all of those images don't completely fade? Well, the answer is they're superimposed onto your relationship with varying degrees of intensity. And the net result is that you end up often comparing your spouse's body to previous lovers. You end up often comparing your spouse's sexual performance or lack thereof to previous encounters. You end up comparing sexual regularity, you know, how many times a week to previous relationships. None of those comparisons are healthy for a marriage, because the essence of being fully in love is being fully invested. The essence of being fully in love is to let go of everything and to immerse yourself in this relationship completely. But that's especially true of sex. What makes sex the most enjoyable of all human experiences? It's simple. It's the only thing that is so intense that we kind of let go of any kind of distraction, at its best. I'm not speaking about the way marital sex is conducted today, where,
Honey, I'm watching Homeland. Just do what you need to do.
Right. Or hey, in the middle of the act, hey, what happened to the remote? It was here a second ago. So that sex at its best is that completely immersive experience. And I just think that the more sexual, the ghosts of lovers past that inhabit our memory, I think it's harder to be fully invested. And you do make these comparisons. And by the way, I think women especially are aware of when their husbands are comparing their bodies, various aspects of their bodies, whether they're thin, whether they're not as thin. And I think that the considerable intimate experience that men have before marriage is one of the reasons that wives have become so self-conscious about their bodies. There was a statistic years ago, and I quoted in a few of my books, that something like 70-80% of housewives, I don't know, housewife, that word has become a pejorative, let's say of married women, they don't undress in front of their husbands at night. They actually undress kind of in the bathroom. And why? Here's the reason. Well, obviously they're self-conscious about their bodies, but the main reason is when they change into pajamas, into a bathrobe, into a nightgown, their husbands don't look. They continue to watch, to binge on Netflix or Amazon Prime or Hulu or any of them. And what an insult. What an insult. And that's when it's only benign. He's watching, I don't know, he's watching, Narcos or something. But what if he's actually looking at porn? So you're going to say, oh, that doesn't happen a lot. That's not true. In the book that I co-authored with Pamela Anderson, it's called Lust for Love. It came out 2 years ago. So she actually tells a story.
Hold on. Okay, you can't just drop that. I mean, there are people here that are like, what? How does a rabbi come to be chas v'shalom even in the same room as Pamela Anderson, much less co-authoring a book? So, okay, continue what you're saying, but then tell us, how did this unlikely friendship begin, develop into what it did? Co-author the book.
Well, let me
about this.
Let me first say that it's funny you say that, because you're saying, how is it that a rabbi got like so lucky or so treif? How could you be with Pam Anderson in the same room? So she and I did a lecture together at Oxford University, whereas I served as rabbi for 11 years in England. It was a Saturday night. It was in the Oxford Union Debating Hall. The place was packed. And I started by saying, a lot of you are probably wondering what a writer and an activist has in common with an international sex symbol and why we would have gotten together to write a book. But Pamela is more than just a writer and an activist. She's so much more than that. Ha ha ha. You didn't even laugh. Okay. Okay. That night they actually got the joke and they laughed. Okay. In other words, you can't imagine me as an international sex symbol. That's okay. That's okay.
Gotcha. Okay, I thought you were calling.
People have insulted me before. But look, how did we get together? Firstly, I run the World Values Network. We promote Jewish values, defend Israel, fight genocide. And we do an annual gala in New York. This year it'll be virtual, February 18th. That sucks. I hate these virtual galas, but it's the time we live in.
Yeah.
So we honored Pamela Anderson one year for her steadfast and public and very vocal support of Israel. She's been married 3 times, I believe. So
wow.
her second husband, I'm pretty sure this is the story, was Jewish, I believe from South Africa. So she suggested to him, why don't we honeymoon in Israel? So they went to Israel. And she spoke about how much she loved it, what a special country. So we brought her to thank her for this public support, because Israel doesn't have a lot of support in Hollywood. And she and I became friends, and it led to conversations about her relationships, about marriage, about my books. And then it led to an article we wrote together for the Wall Street Journal, interestingly, against pornography of all things. The article, people can Google it. It's called Take the Pledge, No More Porn. And then it led to a book. So there it is. We wrote a book. And the book's called Lust for Love. And it was great writing it together, and it's a great book. I think it's extremely interesting. A lot of the things are my theories about relationships, her theories, but a lot of it is her being very honest, kind of showing how these ideas are put into practice, given that she has been this, famous international sex symbol for like a quarter of a century. Maybe the world's best known sex symbol for a quarter of a century. So she was in a unique position to talk about how are women treated when they're looked at as a sex symbol? How do men relate to them in relationships? A lot of very interesting things that kind of leverage the theories we were putting forward in the book, based on real experiences in real relationships.
Oh, wow, that's very, very interesting. I do think it's great that you connect with celebrities. I know also most recently Roseanne Barr. I mean, everybody knows, long time ago, Michael Jackson. There's Madonna, right, at one point. And I think it's so important for rabbis to connect with celebrities, to keep them grounded, so they understand that they have to give back, that so that they don't eventually, when you feel, well, what else is there? They understand, they can feel good about giving and chesed, and, having somebody like you in their life can be very grounding. But I'm curious, with the celebrities that you got involved with, did you talk to them about Judaism? Did they want to, in other words, did you ever convert anybody? Did anyone ever want to convert, or did you even want to see that, or did it not matter?
Well, look, most of the celebrities, I don't know a lot of celebrities. The ones that I knew or know were really just using me to drop my name at cocktail parties to become more famous, or to be invited to A-list events. So, like, let's say some of them, you might think they were world famous, but they would be sitting outside, the red car on, what's it called? That, outside a club trying to get in, and they would exactly, the velvet rope, and they'd say, but I know Rabbi Shmuley. Okay, finally, and they were allowed right in. So they just used me, and I feel used. I feel incredibly used.
You see, he's very funny. This is a very funny rabbi. Yes.
No, seriously spoken, I don't know a lot of celebrities. I know some. My work has never really been about celebrities. To the extent that there are celebrities in the world, you meet some of them. And to the extent that some of them share things in common, then you have something to talk about. Roseanne is an example. You mentioned Roseanne. So Roseanne is a good woman who had the most successful, with the exception of maybe Seinfeld, the most successful sitcom in modern American TV history. Mm-hmm. Why do I say modern when TV is modern? But anyway, and she sent out one tweet and was labeled a racist. Her whole career was destroyed. She, the cancel culture, that was kind of one of the beginnings of it. And it really saddened me because I know her heart. I mean, here she was on TV portraying a multiracial family. On her show, she has an African-American granddaughter, etc. And everyone called her a racist when really she is so far from that. And I just saw it as a tremendous injustice. one strike and you're out. And what she was trying to say, I'm not justifying the tweet, she didn't justify it, she apologized for it, but she was really talking about, she's a big pro-Israel activist, she was talking about the Iran deal. It was she and Valerie Jarrett, President Obama's kind of right hand when he was in the White House, was very involved in the Iran deal, or defending the Iran deal. So, Roseanne said what she said, and it just came out really not good, and she apologized for it. And went beyond apologizing. She took, financial restitution to important African-American charities, but nobody was prepared to forgive, and that bothered me because I want us to have it be a culture of forgiveness. I want us to be a kinder, gentler nation. Well, that was like 3 years ago. You can forget about kinder, gentler. We have become, and it's my article in today's Jerusalem Post. It's called American Fanatics. We are becoming insane. We're just a country of crazy people on the right and the left. Not only is there no middle, the problem is that even on the right and the left, it's being inhabited by a lot of crazy people who are such extremists, and they don't have a lot of heart. They just despise and detest each other. And what I said in this article is, there is room for hatred in Jewish values. There is kosher hatred. You're supposed to hate rapists. You're supposed to hate mass murderers. You're supposed to hate the Nazis. You're supposed to hate Saddam Hussein. You're supposed to hate Bashar al-Assad. We're sitting in Damascus right now. He killed 500,000 Arabs, including countless Arab Muslim children that he gassed to death. We should hate his guts and he should be removed from power so he can't inflict more harm on God's children. Instead, all of our hatred is directed at political opponents. So we have no hate left in our hearts for the legitimate target. So we end up leaving them to slaughter innocent people, bomb them, gas them, kill them, annihilate them, slaughter them. And so there are consequences to having unkosher hate. America practices unkosher hate. If you're a Republican, you can oppose Democrats. If you're a liberal, you can oppose conservatives. But to hate their guts as if they're, the Gestapo, that's deranged. There's something sick about that. Do you know how many analogies to the Holocaust have been employed over the past few years? This is a Nazi, and it trivializes the Holocaust.
Yes, I agree.
I'm fortunate, thank God, that my family is not a Holocaust family, thank God. My grandfather comes from Poland. My grandmother came from Lithuania, but they came to the United States in the early 1900s. And my grandfather brought so much of his family before the Holocaust, so they, thank God, lived. My wife's family was nowhere near as fortunate. My wife's family is from Slovakia. And my wife's great uncle, 18 years old, was murdered at Auschwitz. My wife's grandparents had to hide as non-Jews in Budapest. This is after they were smuggled out of Slovakia with soldiers putting bayonets into hay in a wagon, which is how they survived. I write about all of this in my new book, Holocaust Holiday, One Family's Descent into Genocide, Memory, Hell, which will be out in about 2 months, God willing. I just had a column about it in the Washington Post last week. Yeah. So the trivialization of the Holocaust, when you kind of belittle the gassing and the shooting of 1.5 million children, the gassing and murder or death by disease of 6 million innocent Jews, let alone the 100-odd million non-combatant civilians who died in the Second World War. You're trivializing mass murder, but we do that, and it has to stop.
Oh yeah. Oh wow, it's kosher hate. I like that.
Yeah.
That is true. Well, we do engage in a lot of unkosher. I often feel very proud of myself when my hate is directed, towards Jeffrey Epstein, for example. I spent a whole week just focusing all my hate on him. So I understand that. And about Roseanne Baxter, I would say.
Well, that's an example. Right?
I would say right. That's totally unkosher hate at this point. I feel like she's done her tshuva. And
Roseanne is a good woman. She came with us to Israel, not this past January, but the year before for my son's bar mitzvah. So she was our guest. We went all around Israel together. She's actually a very good woman. Mm-hmm. She has her political opinions. I'm sure many people disagree with her. But what does it have to do with hating someone? Look, even if we get to Trump and Biden and all the hatred that was shown in the recent election, there are things President Trump does that I absolutely categorically disagree with. Then there are things that he does, for example, being the best friend Israel ever had in the Oval Office, that I categorically not just agree with and endorse, but for which I'm extremely grateful to him for. Recognizing Jerusalem as Israel's capital, moving the embassy, recognizing the Golan Heights, taking out the Iran deal, the genocidal Iran deal, where Iran was given $150 billion while they promised the Holocaust. So we can agree with people, we can disagree with them. The hatred, it astonishes me. I was at, my wife and I were at the White House Hanukkah party.
I wanted to ask you about, I saw when you went live from the White House.
Yeah, and the amount of hatred that was shown to me on social media by trolls for just going to the White House Hanukkah party. Listen,
really?
I think my belief, if I'm not mistaken, is that the White House Hanukkah party tradition started with President George W. Bush. It was continued for all 8 years of President Obama's presidency. It was continued by President Trump. The idea that we would not acknowledge an invitation from the duly elected president of the United States to go to the People's House on Hanukkah to celebrate the miracle of Hanukkah, the idea that that would be seen as some kind of wretched political statement. President Trump was duly elected by the people of the United States in the same way that President-elect Joe Biden was now duly elected by the people of the United States. And Biden will be our president come 20th of January, and God should keep him safe. It doesn't matter whether I agree with all of his policies. It doesn't, and I hope that he'll be as good for Israel as Trump has been. Mm-hmm. What matters is the will of the people, and the will of the people. They've now chosen Joe Biden as their president, in the same way that 4 years ago they chose Donald Trump as their president. So to experience the level of hatred and animus that was directed at me for going to the White House Hanukkah party, it was just astonishing.
I mean, I didn't see what people wrote, but was some of it based on the fact that, I mean, it didn't look like a lot of people were wearing masks?
First of all, the invitation from the White House, I'm not here to establish White House policy. They have doctors that are, far more I'm not a doctor, and they have doctors that are far more knowledgeable about me, both about the virus and about everything else. But certainly the invitation from the White House said that you had to be masked, and everyone that walked in wore a mask. But they had a lot of food. They had latkes and all this other stuff. You know about Jews and food. So, no, so everyone, I mean,
how could you be in the White House and there's latkes and you don't eat it?
Whoever ate took off their masks to eat, and I think people took off their masks to take pictures when they were properly socially distanced. But for the rest of the time, everyone was wearing masks. Now, most states, nearly all states, have policies, for example, about it. Again, I'm not justifying anything. I'm simply explaining.
Sure.
Most states have, including New York up until last week, and the state that I live in New Jersey, where I am right now. The laws for indoor dining are that you could take off a mask to eat. Why would the White House? Why was that going to be any different? It's what all states practice. Yes, some have now banned indoor dining, New York, California, where coronavirus has hit so hard. But I guess you have to follow whatever, the CDC guidelines, the medical guidelines, and people were masked at the White House, but they ate and they took off their masks when they ate.
Was it fun? Who did you see? Did you talk to the president? What was it like?
The president tried very hard to take a picture with me. He was like chasing me all around the White House, and I was just kind of saying, look, Donald, I'm here with my wife, and thank you for inviting me, and thank you for everything you've done for Israel. I just want a latke, and every time you try to take a picture with me, someone else steals my latke.
But your lovely wife, Debbie, by the way.
I saw the president. The president is extremely popular in pro-Israel crowds, in the pro-Israel community, and rightly so. Look, we didn't know how this president would be vis-a-vis Israel prior to his election. We just didn't know, because remember, he had never held elected office.
Right.
And people were concerned, especially at the beginning of the administration, when he said that the biggest deal that could be done is a deal between Israel and the Palestinians. And I was thinking to myself, perhaps, but as big a deal as North Korea, as big a deal as certainly getting us out of the Iran deal and imposing more sanctions against that terror-funding, terror-enacting, genocidal regime. There were a lot of important deals. And interestingly, the president, to his credit, veered from maybe that outlook that was articulated at the beginning of his presidency, that the main thing was peace between Israel and Palestinians. Because look, it takes two to tango, it takes two to make peace. And I'm not sure, the Palestinians have been given 70 years for any kind of peace deal with Israel. They've categorically turned them all down, both Republican presidents, Democratic presidents. They turned down President Bill Clinton in the last days of his presidency, when Prime Minister Ehud Barak offered, 94% of Judea and Samaria, what people call the West Bank, and a lot of East Jerusalem, including the area above the Kotel, the Temple Mount, which I think was a big mistake on Israel's part. And even so, Arafat, of course, said no. Later, Mahmoud Abbas was given almost the same deal by Ehud Olmert, said no. Mm-hmm. So when President Trump veered from that and said, what about peace between Israel and Bahrain? What about peace between Israel and the UAE? What about peace between Israel and Morocco? What about peace between Israel and Sudan? So President Trump, his biggest haters would have to admit, if they want to be honest, his biggest detractors would have to say that he has utterly reshaped the modern Middle East. You now have Israel. You now have, I think, 20,000 Israelis have visited the United Arab Emirates since the peace treaty was signed. I was at the White House for the signing of the peace treaty with Prime Minister Netanyahu, the president, the vice president, and it was very inspiring. And it's not a cold peace like Israel has with Egypt, or a cold peace like Israel has with Jordan. Israelis don't visit Jordan and Egypt because they're probably not safe. But they're going in their tens of thousands to the UAE, because not only are they safe, thank God, but they're welcomed, and it's a very warm peace. Hopefully the same will happen with Morocco, and hopefully the same will happen with Bahrain. Gosh, can you imagine if Israel makes peace with Saudi Arabia? Wow, I mean, that's the game changer. So Trump deserves credit for all of that, regardless of anything else that people disagree with.
Yeah, yeah. I think even his detractors admit that he's...
I'm not sure about that. In the same way, a lot of Republicans don't admit anything positive about Biden, and that's stupid and imbecilic. There are many Democrats who won't admit anything good about Trump, which is also stupid and imbecilic, because we're an intelligent nation, and we should really exercise our God-given intelligence our God-given wisdom, knowledge, understanding to pronounce our informed position on the various policies of our time. We don't do that. We just choose a team. We're like the Red Sox and the Yankees. If you live in Boston, there's nothing the Yankees can do which is good. The Yankees can like feed every child in some war-torn region, and you're going to say, you're going to find some fault because it's all about teams.
Yeah.
Well, that's sports. It's not as bad. When it comes to doing the same thing in politics, it's really bad because then we can't improve the country. We can't improve the world. America's the only superpower. It's the global leader. And look, this past, when I was the rabbi at Oxford, we used to host many Nobel Peace Prize winners, many Nobel Peace laureates, Elie Wiesel, Joseph Rotblat, Mikhail Gorbachev, Shimon Peres. I could go on, a lot of Nobel Peace laureates.
Wow.
And it remains the most prestigious prize in the world. So, Trump, for everything he did in the Middle East, in recreating the Middle East, he really did deserve the Nobel Peace Prize. No matter what the Nobel Committee in Oslo, Norway thinks of him. They probably hate his guts, but okay. But instead it went to this year in October, it went to the United Nations World Food Program, also very deserving, but not an individual, an organization, a group. And the UN is kind of the default recipient whenever they don't find anyone else. Yeah. But he did do a lot to deserve it. That doesn't mean that people who are listening, who may hate Trump's position on immigration, they may hate Trump's position on, a host of other issues. That doesn't mean that they have to agree with any of that. They can vote against him. They can party in the streets with, if he loses, because that's how they feel. But just be a little bit honest and give him credit for refashioning and reshaping the Middle East.
Yeah, I think people are afraid it's a slippery slope. If you say one good thing, then, it might increase his power or something. But I think now that he's not president, here and there are politicians that are slipping, maybe saying one little positive thing. And then it's like, aha, is that person going to get canceled now? Are they going to get in trouble with Nancy Pelosi? So we'll see what happens, how people ultimately, I guess, speak about his legacy but it will be on a case-by-case basis, I think, according to each thing that he did. Overall, he's terrible, but there may be one thing here and there that somebody somewhere could admit that he did good.
Look, this is right after Hanukkah. We're 3 days after Hanukkah. It's a time for national unity. I embrace President-elect Joe Biden's call for a time to heal, and I wish we could all do that. But then again, his own people should also tone down the rhetoric about the Trump people in order to create healing. We should just kind of turn the dial down on all the inflammatory rhetoric that everybody is using. It's just not good for the country. And in the same way, when Trump came in 4 years ago, if he succeeded, America would succeed. Well, the same thing is true now. If Biden succeeds, America succeeds. So 100%. Whatever people's political position is, we have to hope that he'll succeed. But as far as Israel is concerned, I hope that he'll continue most of Trump's policies.
That's what I want. What do you think? Do you think it will continue? It's looking good to continue.
I don't know. I mean, you have, let's see, Susan Rice, thankfully was not given a foreign policy position in the incoming administration. She was giving she's head of the domestic policy board. I hope that she'll have little to no say on any foreign policy because she was terrible for Israel. And I think terrible for the United States. Remember, she's the one that gave us this bogus sham thing that our ambassador murdered in Benghazi, that it was about remember a film. It was because it was of course it was a coordinated terror attack, and she was terrible on so many of her pronouncements about Israel. I don't know how much sympathy she has in her heart for Israel, but so that was a good thing. Tony Blinken, who's the Secretary of State-elect, I believe, seems to be a good guy and has a strong relationship with Israel's leaders. And Biden himself, with the exception of Biden getting so steadfastly behind Obama's catastrophic, embarrassing Iran deal, Biden has a 50-year, half a century history of friendship with the Jewish community in general and the pro-Israel community in particular. Yeah. Hopefully he'll be a great friend to Israel.
Yeah, I agree. And so I thank you so much for coming on here. This is so fascinating. I mean, we wanted to get to know you a little bit, and I think we have. I know you mentioned your time at Oxford, and how did that shape your whole future as a rabbi? all those years that you spent in England learning at Oxford.
Well, it's a little bit like it's a little bit like this. I never learned at Oxford. I mean, I hope I learned at Oxford. I was never a student at Oxford. I was the rabbi to the students at Oxford and
Rabbi to the students.
I was the Rebbe Shliach. The Rebbe sent me as the Chabad Shliach. I created the Oxford University L'chaim Society. Within 2-3 years, we had become the second largest student organization in Oxford's history. We had thousands and thousands of members. Some of our former student presidents include Cory Booker, who was my student president in 1992 to 1994, or 1992, 1993. He's now our senator from New Jersey. Israel's ambassador to the United States, Ron Dermer, was my student president. Eric Garcetti, the mayor of Los Angeles, was one of our most involved.
Oh my goodness.
Professor Noah Feldman of Harvard, one of the country's leading constitutional experts, was one of our very involved students, remains a very dear friend till today. But if you ask me what it was like being the rabbi to the students at Oxford, just like I told you about the about the celebrities, I kind of felt that I was being used. I kind of felt that Oxford was using me to gain credibility as a university, to kind of put Oxford on the map. Before I arrived at Oxford, no one had ever heard of the university. It was, it was really kind of an intellectual.
Like, where are we going with this? The rabbi with the beard.
It was really an intellectual backwater, and not even the equivalent of like a community college. Once I went there, that's when it achieved its international reputation. So I kind of feel used, and yet if I was able to help a great center of academic learning become a great center of academic learning, and establish its name where no one had heard of it before, then, it was.
Well, I have to say, I've certainly heard of Oxford. And now whenever I hear Oxford, I'm going to think Rabbi Shmuley Zoom.
Who helped to create Oxford. That's the point.
Who helped to create the reputation. Now, when I met you at Stand Up New York, it was Christmas Eve 2 years ago. You were on stage. You were doing stand-up, or you were attempting to do. Was that your first time trying to do stand-up comedy? Was that, I don't know if I witnessed the very first attempt. Have you done it since? Do you like it?
Look, fair question. I am, thank God, the proud father of 9 children, 6 daughters and 3 sons, thank
Enough
God.
comedy right there.
So if the rabbi thing doesn't work out, I just need, I need a fallback position.
One kid's got to hit it big.
So if the rabbi thing doesn't work, I'm always thinking that maybe stand up,
Right.
So I tried it that night. I think I flopped pretty miserably. I wasn't really doing stand up. I was just kind of flopping around on stage.
Like a fish.
Yeah.
Out of rabbi.
But rabbis have got to tell jokes sometimes just to remain current and remain interesting.
Well,
the reason I was there that night is that I'm a great fan of the Carlebach Shul, and they're the ones that do that. They're not going to do it this year. Everything's closed. Actually, my friend Donnie Zoldan, he's the co-owner of Stand Up New York. So he did a march last week, the week before, on a Saturday night towards the SNL studios in Rockefeller Center.
Yeah.
Protesting the fact that they shut down all the comedy clubs, and yet SNL has a live audience. Like, where is that fair? Anyway, who knows? There's a lot of stuff happening. Yeah. But I enjoyed it, and Christmas Eve is the night that the Jews take over New York.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm doing a nice virtual show.
Well, I look forward to seeing it. You got to make sure that you should plug it and make sure you'll see it.
I got to plug it, guys. It's all across Kveller, Alma, 70 Faces Media sponsoring it. So it should be pretty exciting. Before you came, and I had wanted to do this with you, but I filled some time and did it a little earlier. I talked about the top 5 things that annoy people about their partners during the pandemic. So could I quickly tell you what I found, and if you have any thoughts on what people said?
Sure.
Okay, because I thought it was pretty interesting. Okay, number 5, what bothered people, the need to work out regularly. So if you've got one spouse or partner that's a big gym rat and the other one doesn't care, that can get kind of annoying.
Yeah. I think that going to a gym is God's way of punishing us here on earth for our sins. And I think it's also, it's kind of preparation for purgatory and hell. The idea is that God doesn't want to kind of shock you when you arrive at hell, and you'll go, "Oh my God, I'm in hell." So he puts you in hell every day for like an hour, where you're lifting things and trainers are beating you up and telling you how fat and ugly you are, and that just gets you ready for when the angels of destruction are going to do that to you for all eternity. So I agree. That's incredibly annoying. I think that I think we need to stop working out and just really pack on the pounds. And because you never know, like with the pandemic, it's like kind of bears who hibernate in winter. They never know where their next meal is when they wake up in the spring. So they need to like put it all here. And I think we should be doing the same thing.
Okay, number 4. Being married to a healthcare hero is rough. I can't compete with that.
Well, that's something I'm not even gonna like kind of have fun with or try to be comic about, because they're just amazing. I think the healthcare heroes, I'm not gonna say any bad thing. I think I have a daughter married to a medical student, and God, he studies his, tush off. Yeah. And they're amazing. So let's just praise them. They deserve all the praise. They're incredibly courageous.
That's terrific. Agreed. But it is kind of annoying. I get it. No, I'm kidding. Okay. Number 3, this one person said, honestly, nothing annoys me. It's refreshing to know I actually like my spouse. Is she telling the truth, or he?
I don't know. My wife has been telling me lately that she doesn't like me. So, but she was telling me that before the coronavirus. So I said, when she told me that, I said, so what's changed? And she said, nothing. I just wanted to remind you. I said, thank you. And our marriage continues like that. So I think the people who disliked each other before are probably just going to continue to dislike each other now.
One of my favorite jokes, I say, I've had 2 failed marriages, you know that, and I'm still in one of them. So.
That's funny. Okay, number 2. We're at number 2.
This is an odd one. That he won't agree to a divorce. Don't you hate when that happens? Kind of awkward. Got to think, we don't know the stats yet of how many people actually did split up as a result of.
Yeah, I talked a lot about this when the coronavirus started, because divorce numbers were way up.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they were way up, and then they kind of tapered off. But the New York Times had a great story the other day that people are proposing now more than ever because they don't want to be alone. And it used to be that if you said, "Look, I want to be married because I don't want to be alone," you were seen as kind of a loser. Sorry, loser.
Yeah.
But it's what the Torah says. The Torah says that when God created Adam alone, he was lonely. Lo tova yos adam levado. God declared it was not good for man to be alone. Esaloi ezer kenegdo. He gave him a helpmate who was his equal, who was his opposite, and they lived happily ever after until, of course, they got kicked out of the Garden of Eden, cursed for all eternity, and happily ever after, except for that stuff. Okay.
I know sometimes. And the number 1 thing that annoys people about their partner during the pandemic, the way they breathe. Just hearing that.
That's interesting. I mean, we're all wearing masks, so we're breathing pretty weird. No one told me that they're worried about it. So you're kind of saying we each have like a Darth Vader kind of breath right now, like, Luke, I am your father. Like that kind of breath.
I guess it's something about being in the same apartment or room with your spouse. More and more, you just maybe are noticing different things about them.
Well, in a moment again of like seriousness, I can't believe people are complaining about that. Just be happy, thank God, that all your loved ones are breathing. Okay, be happy, thank God that they're not, God forbid, on a ventilator. They're not, God forbid, on supplemented oxygen, because.
That is so true.
Because we could joke about coronavirus, and there has to be room for laughter, because we can't just sink into a bottomless pit of hopelessness and despair. There's some room for comedy, but of course, the truth is that 300,000 people dying is an unspeakable tragedy, and so many people in the ICU. So anyone who's married is watching and thinking, "Oh my God, I can't stand the way my spouse is breathing, or they're breathing, thank God. Get on your frickin' hands and knees and give praise to God that they're safe and they're breathing, that you're safe and breathing. Let's all be healthy and safe, Talia, right?
Thank God. And I want to thank you, international sex symbol, Rabbi Shmuley Zoom. Thank you. You do have very nice eyes, by the way.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And what about my beard? But
Not a big beard fan, but the eyes.
Okay. But let me just say this one thing, that I thank you for saying the truth, that I may be an international sex symbol, but that was like a half an hour ago when we talked about it at the beginning of your broadcast.
That's a callback, though. That's
no, in the past 30 minutes, I've actually been upgraded. I'm now an intergalactic sex symbol.
Oh.
Kind of on like different worlds and different planetary systems and different different galaxies.
Wow.
And I feel you're kind of selling me short, and it's just not right. Okay.
You heard it here first. I've never heard of an intergalactic sex symbol. I like it. I like that title.
Now you have.
I think that's a great title. I'll give you international. I feel like you're going to have to earn that next. I don't know what, but you know that's pretty crazy. Maybe you need to grow like a tail, or you know.
Maybe I just need to grow at like my height. Just growing without the supplemental tail or anything else. Just growing would be nice.
Rabbi Shmuley Zoom, thank you so much for coming live
you.
with me. This was such a treat.
Thank you, Talia.
Stay safe, stay well.
God bless. God bless you and your followers. Yeah, you guys stay safe and well as well. God bless.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. You too. Regards to Debbie.
Thank you. Thank you very much to your husband as well. God bless you.
Thank you.